Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Stinkbug Works, where nothing has changed. Well, that's not entirely true. Things that you cannot see have changed. Plans for this? You know what? Let's talk about electric motors, and then I'll talk about my plans for that. Because this is going to get a new electric motor, and we're going to talk about how I'm going to pick a motor and why. Everybody knows that brushless motors have constants. One of the constants we use all the time is kV, RPM per volt. In any given motor, you put in a certain voltage, you'll get a certain RPM. But motors also have other constants. You put in a certain voltage, you'll get a certain torque. You have iron losses, the losses you get from the magnetic stators. The Hacker motors don't have any iron, so they don't have any iron losses. But they do have twice as much copper losses. And the way to avoid copper losses is to get as much copper in there as you can. Well, take a look at Steve's motor here. This sucker is packed full of copper. There's no room for air in there. Now, Steve worked to get these motors right. He's the only guy I know that actually built his own dynamometer to test his own motors. And so he would spend a week, tweaking a motor design, put it on the dyno, watch the graphs and all that, and say, no, got to go back and change this. The guy was absolutely brilliant, and his motors reflect it. All the world records are either held with Steve's motors or his buddy over in Germany, Lenner. So Steve and Lenner are kind of like the German and American Godzillas of the scene, But, because I know Steve, because he's, so local, I like running his motors. Yeah, I'm not going to set any world records, but I like knowing I got a cool motor in there. One drawback with it, anytime you get ultimate coolness, you pay for it. There's a reason things are better. There's a reason a Cadillac costs more than a Pinto. Or should I say a Yugo. So here I am, I'm thinking, okay, which motor do I want to put in there? Do I want this one? I want this one. I've got to charge between here and here and here and here. And each time I make a choice, it's not cheap. And, I picked this one out thinking this hull would be pretty light, but it's not. It's just too hefty. I'll talk about this in a moment. So, because I'm setting this up for one of these motors, and I have this motor mount that fits this. This is also the same motor mount that's in this thing's big sister, the American Spirit. And it's running a rocket motor. Rockets are the only other motor I know of that are made in this, actually it's 29.5 millimeter diameter. I could put a cheap rocket motor in here that's roughly the same size in kV as the new motor I'm looking at, test it, and if I like it, well, then I'll consider plopping for the new motor. If I don't like it, I'm only out $30. Those rocket motors are cheap because they're not packed full of copper and they don't have precision bearings and they don't have these precision 5 millimeter shafts and, they're not handmade and ultra bitchin'. They're production motors. So that's my plan. I'm going to put a cheap production motor in here. I'll get this thing set up of the size of the 1010 I'm contemplating. That would be a 2948 would be the same size as a 1010, 1110. I keep calling them 10 series. I will forever do that till the day I croak. I'm going to call these 10 series motors just because, but when I do, just know that I mean what I say and what I mean. I mean 11 series. Now, what am I going to do with this 11 series motor? I have the same motor in my shrimp outrigger. And like I said, it does pretty good. I think I know what I'm going to do. There are 3 places I know of where you can get a modern outrigger hull. One is EcoMaster, and that's this guy in Ukraine. Now, his stuff is pretty darned nice and not exorbitantly priced. It's reasonable. It's not cheap, but it's reasonable. He makes a killer mini outrigger. Etti, E-T-T-I, over in, God, are they Hong Kong or Thailand? I think they're Hong Kong. Etti, over in Hong Kong, also makes a killer little outrigger. And lastly, Oliver in Germany makes the Mini-Me. And me thinks a Mini-Me might look kind of cool in my collection. And this, see, in the European Mini Hydro class, they're shooting for motors that are about 60 grams. This is 65. I'm right in there with the size of this motor. I was in there with the size of this motor here. It's just the weight of this. So that's just some future thinking that's rambling through my mind. Stand by. Gotta have jet juice. So there, oh, yeah, and this. This is cool, and it'll keep the motor cool, but it's heavy. I ordered a slightly larger carbon fiber sleeve, and I'm just going to make something that will go over. Although, for the larger rocket motors, do I have one here? I do have cooling jackets that will fit the larger rocket motors. This one's too short. It'd have to fit between this screw and this opening, and so that would be just a really short little jacket. There you go, boys and girls. Until next time, jet out.